Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is Karel Baracs. I have a first name Karel, what you would say Karel, and in the Netherlands we say Karel. Typical Dutch boy's name. And my family name, my surname is Baracs, which is Hungarian, since from a Hungarian father and a Dutch mother. Born in 1950, that makes me 72 years old today. And it was a day when I was young, when I had to choose profession, and it was for me between being a teacher or being an actor. About the theater school, they said that they first break you down mentally and then build you up, and that didn't feel to me. So I chose for the teacher training college, and I became a teacher in the elementary school. Not so much to teach children about mathematics. I did it also. I like to teach them about life. So what I did, I had a guitar, I sang songs, discussion, friendship, about other things that are important. So I did that for 60 years, and then I was actually like a football player. I was scouted with somebody who said, "Would you like to tell stories on more schools?" And because there was a new generation in the Netherlands, we had our newcomers from Morocco and from Turkey, and the Dutch methods were not sufficient. So, and they were wondering, how do we teach the Dutch language? And I said, and you was telling stories. And somebody made up the name, the storyman for me. That is in Dutch, verhaal. And as a logo, I hold this red hat, over the fifth number. I had a red hat, so like a logo, and the storyman travels to the schools with this story. And it was after 18 years that the mayor of Amsterdam saw me working with the story that you're going to get tonight, which is about the Second World War in Amsterdam. And he was impressed by the fact that 400 children in the theater of Amsterdam were like glued to their chairs for 1.5 hours. And then decided to announce me officially Storyteller of Amsterdam by a government decision. City council. Very, very proud of that there is a career. So that was in 2008. I would never have dreamed that I would be a storyteller after more than 30 years. Tonight we have come to listen to a true story that takes place in Amsterdam in 1943. And actually, tonight I have a feeling that I scream when I talk to you, but that's not always. And I do it much better in Dutch than in English. So what I do it half reading and half like free. So we have an intermission after about 40 minutes. The whole story will take 75 minutes, and then I hope that you stay for just a short while, give you some feedback. I can answer questions. And here's the story. Let me tell you why Tram Line 8 no longer runs. Let's take you back 1943 and to Amsterdam, maybe the most beautiful city in the world. We walk along the shimmering canals, lined with trees, and by wonderfully designed houses more than 300 years old. Small boats sail. We cross slender bridges, walk into narrow streets, and in a particularly busy shopping street, we stop in front of a shop at number 82. On the large screen window, in decorative letters, it says, Bots Fabrics. This shop belongs to the respectable gentleman, Mr. Theo Bots. He's 64 years old. He's a widower. Now, when his son still lived at home, it was full of activity both here and on the first floor. But since his wife died, Theo is alone. He sleeps at the back of the shop, and the rooms above, they remain empty. And yet, do I hear something? Were you walking? on the first floor. And die wagelen op de slot. There's a room that's locked from inside. An Amsterdam Jewish family is hiding there for almost a week now. It's the Apple family. It's father Jaap, mother Sarah, their young daughter Miriam, who is 6, and their son Sally. These people came in anger, not in anger, they came fearing for their lives. That is going to be. Fearing for their lives. They have come knocking for help. Mr. Boss, they're looking for us. We don't know where else to go. Would you please hide us? Now, Theo Boss doesn't consider himself a hero, and he'd rather not do it because he knows all too well what the consequences can be for helping Jews in these difficult times. They lock you up in an open-air prison, which you probably won't survive. And he'd like nothing better than to say, Mr. Apple, would you mind asking? But when Theo sees the terrified face of father, mother, and these adorable children, his heart melts. And Theo hears himself say, Mr. Apple, I still have an empty room upstairs. You can stay there, but it's only temporary. So please, find another solution. And Mr. Apple, would you please keep the curtains closed? The neighbors mustn't know a thing. And Mr. Apple, please, keep the children quiet. Now it's almost a week since they've arrived. The curtains are kept closed all day long. And how do you keep children quiet? That's an impossible task because they want to play. And Miriam and Sally just that. They run after each other. Sally, I'm going to get you. Feet snap across the floorboards. Father and mother hiss. Don't do that. Stop running around. Now, when the atmosphere is tense, Miriam takes Sally onto her lap and reads aloud from that they must have read only at least 1,000 times, but Sally always enjoys it. His sister points at the animals and he says the names: a cow, a horse, a sheep, a cat. Sally slips down from Miriam's lap and wants to go and see if there's a cat outside. And he's already at the curtains, but his father grabs him by the wrist and smacks him on the fingers. Now Sally starts to cry. Quickly, Sarah scoops herself from the floor and cuddles him. My soft, softly. Downstairs in the shop, it's just an ordinary day. The customers come and go. Theo Boss is doing a train. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, the doorbell goes. And a lady steps in. Boss knows her well. This is Mrs. Smith. She's a regular customer. She lives further up in the street. He greets you cordially. Good morning, Mrs. Smith. It's been a good while. Yes, she. Good morning, Mr. Boss. How are you today? Can't be easy. A man on his own. Just not one. But it's difficult for everybody. We do miss our son, Ali. He's fighting for all of us on the Eastern Front. Listen, have a look. Here's a photo of him. My son, Ali Smith, in his German uniform, and the helmet was given in person by Mr. Hitler himself in Berlin. Oh, such a lovely lad. And he's coming on leave in a couple of weeks. Oh, and we've got some news. Ali is going to announce his engagement. Oh, so we're about to throw a party. And I said to my husband, we ought to have a new tablecloth to go with the occasion. I am looking for one in the colors of the party, red and black, with those beautiful white swastikas on it. Oh, you don't have those. Oh, I thought, oh, Mr. Boss, have you heard about them? About that Jewish family from down the road, the Rosenbaum family? They were all taken away last night. I heard it from your husband. He said, they have all gone, the grandparents and the little ones too. We had a look through the front window. I said to my husband, have a look, yo. Everything is still in there. And what's table, It's a vase with flowers in it, and the chair. I said to my husband, there's some nice stuff in there. I said, you know what you should do? You should get that stuff out shoppers before somebody else does. My husband says, I'm not taking nothing new. I'll put another lock on the door. And when Arnie gets married, him and his new missus can move right in. Yes, I like this black one. How much is it? 3 guilders. Yes, let's have it. Yes, I've got the coupons to it. There you are. Suddenly, boom, 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 boom. But Mr. Boss, you do live here all alone now, don't you? Oh, you didn't hear it? Something fell on the first floor. Oh, you didn't hear it? Sweat? Something fell? It was probably just a cat, eh? Good day, Mr. Boss. As soon as the customer is gone, Theo locks up the shop and goes up the stairs. He knocks at the locked door. In the room, 4 people stand frozen to the spot. The apple children get a hand over their mouths. There's another knock, and a voice that speaks. Mr. Apple, open the door. It's me, Boss. A sigh of relief. The key turns, and Jaap peeks around the door into Boss' excited face. Yes, Mr. Apple. The neighbors are talking. You must leave at once. Mr. Boss, you can't send us away just like that. We don't know anybody else who can help us. We don't have anywhere else to go. That's not my problem. I said a couple of days. It's now almost a week now. I can't cope anymore. Don't you understand? Tomorrow morning at first light, I want you to go and keep the children quiet. Understand? Where are we going? And Jaap shuts the door. And the 2 parents look at each other in disbelief. Their eyes say, let's not talk now. They don't want to frighten the children. Only when the little ones are lying in one of the beds, hopefully asleep, do they softly start to share their worries. Oh yeah, where can we go? I've been thinking, do you remember that wonderful colleague of mine who moved out of Amsterdam? It was Teunis Wellinga. Teunis gave me his address, and we were always welcome, he said. Yeah. With those scars, they will recognize us as Jews right away. Darling, I'll take them off our coats, of course. Now, darling, get some sleep. You'll need all the energy you've got tomorrow. So Sarah lies on the other bed with her clothes still on, while Jaap takes their coats, and with a small pair of scissors, he starts to snip away the tiny stitches of the scars of David. And while he's working concentratedly, a small voice shouts from the bed, Mommy, I'm scared. Come and lie here next to me, darling. And Miriam gets out of her bed and climbs in with her mother, cuddling up close to her. And the girl says, Mommy, why are those people so nasty to us? No, darling. But it's not all people who act like that. Most people mean well. Will you never forget it? Mommy, will you sing for me? So Sarah sings for her little daughter by stroking her hair, and cradled in her mother's arms, little Miriam falls asleep. Then Sarah rests her tired head upon the pillow. Only the father remains awake, working feverishly at their coats. And now that the work has been done, Jaap rests into the chest, and Father Apple slowly nods off there in the chair. As tiredness gets the better of him, his last thought is, tomorrow I'll bring them all to safety. Suddenly, Jaap awakes with a start. He sits upright in his chair, his hair standing on him. What's that noise? The sound of car engines humming in front of the house. Shouting? Dogs barking? In a strip of light falling from a chink in the curtains, Jaap looks at his watch. 6. He peeks out, and his heart misses beat. The street is filled with military people, and soldiers jump out. He hears them yell, orders are given. Die Juden raus, schnell! They bang at the door, ring the bells. And if there's no answer, they kick down the door and even shoot it open. They begin to search the houses, and they find people hidden in the strangest places, in cupboards, on the beds. They even break open the floors, and terrified people emerge. They have to leave their homes at gunpoint and join with the others who already are waiting outside. Mr. Bos is raided too. The shopkeeper, lying deep in sleep, is awakened by men in uniform. He steps out of the bed and talks to the intruders in his pajamas. Gentlemen, you don't think that I'm hiding Jews now, do you? Look for yourself, sir. There's no one here. They're not interested in downstairs. They know exactly where to look. An order is given. Here's the shop, first floor. And two soldiers run up to the first floor and start to open doors there. Here, now Badezimmer, the bathroom, and then the door gets locked. There's more knocking. Aufmachen, you rauskommen! 4 people petrified in the middle of the room. Then a large group kicks the door open, and the Apple family stands eye to eye with their guns pointing at them. Mitkommen! The suitcases were standing ready. And so Jaap carries Miriam, and Sarah holds Sally. Rough hands push them down the stairs. There's no time to say goodbye to Mr. Bos. The shopkeeper is snarled at, Hier bleiben! He cannot leave. They will pick him up later. And his fate will be bitter. In front of the shop, on the pavement, groups of people are waiting together, bags and suitcases clasped in their hands, children on the arms. Armed soldiers are standing around them, Alsatian dogs on the leash. Also, Amsterdam police assist the Nazi military at his raid. At least 50 more Amsterdam Jews have been captured here in this morning's raid. And eventually, the next command is heard, here. And a sad procession of men, women, and children starts to move towards the street corner where their transport already stands waiting. There, on the corner of the street, is a tram stop where a tram car of the Amsterdam Transport Company stands waiting with an Amsterdam tram driver at the wheel. Above, on the front of the tram, the service number is written. A big 8. What a laugh, Jaap thinks bitterly. For many years, I took this tram every day to travel from home to work and back, till last year. Then suddenly all Jews were officially banned from all trams and buses, and we had to walk. As a result, Tram 8, which connected 2 Jewish neighborhoods, lost almost all of its passengers. The so-called Jewish line got suspended. And now Jaap thinks, I am forced to take the same tram at gunpoint? Yes. The detainees are pushed into the tram carriages like cattle. The tram driver sets off. And somewhere in the crowd, you recognize Jaap and Sarah with their children. And Jaap thinks, where are they going to take us? And Sarah thinks, thank God, as long as we're together, nothing awful can happen to us. The ride is not long. I would say no more than 10 minutes. And the tram comes to a halt very near the Amsterdam Zoo in a main road called Plantation Middle Lane. The tram stop stands right in front of a grand white building which has written on its facade, Dutch Theatre, Hollandse Schouwburg. This old theatre is the place where the Nazis, the Amsterdam Jews, under arrest. Before the war, the Dutch theatre was a popular place. Amsterdammers would flock to it to enjoy its musical shows and cabaret. But now, the red flush ceased, are filled with desperate folk awaiting an uncertain fate. Outside, the pavement is full of soldiers, rifles at the ready, dogs on the leash. Suddenly they shout at the passengers should get out of the tram car and fast. Schnell, raus! Behind Jaap, Sarah tries to step out as quickly as possible. And then from the stop, they then walk right between two rows of soldiers towards the white building. And they're about to enter, but suddenly the next command is heard. Nein, die Erwachsenen hier, die Kinder rüberschreiben. That means the adults stay here, the little ones go over the road. And they start to wrench the children from their parents. While in the background, the empty tram car starts to move, soldiers pull Miriam and Sally from the arms of their mom and dad. Both children start to scream. Jaap and Sarah start to protest, but they are shoved into the theater building. Looking back in anguish, Sarah sees soldiers with Miriam and Sally bundled in their arms walk across to the other side of Plantation Middle Lane. There the children are carried into another building, an old nursery they call the creche. Inside, Miriam and Sally, quite beside themselves, are put down to the floor. The squad of men leave. The door gets locked. Outside, one soldier is put on guard. No one can get in or out of the building. And within the creche, nurses in blue and white uniforms try to give comfort wherever they can. They share cups of milk and sandwiches. And Sally Apple, his face wet with tears, is easily seduced by a sandwich. But his sister, she doesn't want to eat or drink anything. Miriam will spend the rest of the day crying and occasionally sobbing. I want my mommy. Oh, how clever. Because what parents would ever attempt to escape without their children? And show me a child that would try to escape without his parents? No. They'll all be staying put here until the next transport is ready to leave. In a few days' time, there will be more than enough prisoners, and the families will be then reunited and taken by train to the north of the Netherlands, where in the countryside near a village called Westerbork, they have installed a larger prison for Jews. And when they have collected enough people there, they'll all be taken by a cattle train to an unknown destination, somewhere in Eastern Europe. Now, what I also find peculiar is that while here, in the midst of town, before the eyes of all the passers-by, people are so mistreated, it is as if the lives of the Amsterdammers, with nothing to fear from the Nazis, their lives appear to go as normal. And in the evening, the Amsterdammers still enjoy going out. They fill the cafes, the restaurants. They attend the cinema and the theater, where wonderful dancers perform merrily in front of a happy audience. Never ever again the tram 8 will be seen in the streets of Amsterdam. This is a tribute to the passengers of the lost Jewish line, the people who were murdered during the Holocaust. Now, what is the situation in my story? On this side of the road, we have the Dutch theater, and right opposite the creche. Now, next to the creche, there is a third building that plays a role in my story. It's a school building. In fact, it's a teacher training college. And while outside horrific scenes take place, inside the lessons continue. Now, at the back of the teacher training college, on the first floor, in an empty classroom, somebody standing in front of the window, staring out. This is Johan van Hulst. He is the principal of the school, and Johan stands here more often. He's looking into the neighboring garden, where he sees lots of children playing under the eyes of nurses. And it saddens him so, because Johan van Hulst knows all too well who these children are. These are the Jewish Amsterdam children, and he has some idea what the Nazis are planning to do with these little ones. Before the war, this man, Johan van Hulst, read out of Hitler's books in which Hitler expounded his plans for a solution for the so-called Jewish problem. These children are doomed to death. And Van Hulst lets the net curtain fall, and he stamps angrily up and down in the empty classroom, thinks to himself, they must not be allowed to do that with children, and he wants to do something. But where can he start? One man against such a juggernaut. But finally, Johan decides that he won't stand for this. And you see him leave the classroom. He walks back to his office. He closes the door behind him. He grabs the telephone, picks it up, and spends the whole morning calling some of his best friends and acquaintances, people he thinks he can trust. And you hear him say things like, can you help me with the problem? It's between you and me. Well, tonight, but not too late. Before breakfast. Yes, 6:30. Now, here in my office. Who? Yes. Tell her that she's also one. And that very same week, the doors open of Amsterdam houses, and they step out. The saviors of children. Now I want to take you to one of these addresses where friends of Johan van Hulst live. We turn off towards the heart of town to one of the broadest canals. This is Keizersgracht, where we can look across the water at the tall and elegant canal. This is Keizersgracht 484, 484, there on the third floor. There we live. Who? Two good friends of Johan. When he explained his plans to them, they didn't hesitate. We'll do it, they said. They didn't for a moment consider the risks they must take. Who are these friends? They are called Hester and Pauline. They are two beautiful young women of Amsterdam, both 26 years old. Hester and Pauline live here, but they also run a beauty parlor here, the sort of place where Amsterdam ladies will drop in for a massage or a facial. Hester and Pauline are doing comfortably, even now. On a warm and sunny day in June 1943, Hester and Pauline leave their house. They cycle from Keizersgracht towards the neighborhood called the Plantage, in the immediate vicinity of the Amsterdam Zoo. And it's to the fence of the zoo that they lock their bicycles, and then firmly arm in arm, they walk back to Plantation Middelleen. And now they get around the corner and they walk towards the crash. A lone soldier paces up and down in front of the crash. He busies himself with important work, guarding young children. He keeps an eye on passers-by, like two women taking a walk. He looks them over, which he ought not to do while on duty. He admires their legs and whistles softly through his teeth. 20 meters further on, the two friends enter the college building. There in the lobby, they meet their good friend Johan van Hulst, the principal. He has anticipated their arrival. It's good that you've come. Follow me. And he takes them down the long corridor of the school towards the back of the building. And once there, he opens the doors that lead down into the garden. They then walk across gravel and lawn, right to the bottom of the garden, where they reach a small wall. And on the other side of it, in the neighboring garden, a couple of nurses are waiting for them with two sweet children. One of the nurses picks up a little boy. This is Sally Apple. He is 2. The young lad willingly lets himself be lifted over the wall, where Pauline catches him. He tightly clasps the toy bear to himself. The boy doesn't seem to mind at all. The other nurse lifts a little girl over the wall. The girl, with a blue bowl in her hair and a doll in her hand, stretches out her arm. Hester catches her. The nurse adds, "This is Miriam Apple. She is 6. A brother and a sister. This is important. I have mission for this." And the 2 nurses quickly return to the other children, playing in the sunshine. None of them seem to have noticed that 2 of them suddenly have disappeared. Johan van Hulst doesn't waste a second. He is already leading his guests back to the college building. Hester and Pauline follow him through the garden, each carrying a child. They get into the hallway. Van Hulst closes the garden doors and then hurries around them through the corridor, pointing the way to the main exit. And it's there at the front door that Hester hands over the girl to Pauline and takes charge of the situation. Hester opens the front door a crack and peeks out. Across the road, several soldiers are keeping guard at the Dutch theatre. Hester glances to the left. There she catches a glimpse of the solitary soldier standing guard in front of the crèche. She closes the door, looks at her friend, and shakes her head. Look, if they would come out now, the guards across the street might notice the small children leaving the college building. Or the chap in front of the nursery might notice it. But they remember the suggestion that Johan van Hulst has already made for just this situation. Wait, he has said. You must wait until the regular tram 9 is standing at the stop. When people across the street can't see us and our pavement anymore. Then one of you should distract the guard at the nursery, and the other one of you takes the children to the right, and you can both meet at the bicycle. Once more, Esther opens the door a crack. She peers into the distance and sees a regular tram 9 approaching. This tram will first cross the intersection and then come to a standstill at a stop opposite the Dutch theatre. Hester nods to Pauline. She takes a deep breath and steps out onto the lone soldier is pacing up and down when out of the blue, a pretty young girl walks up to him and starts to talk. Goedendag, is het voor de dierenarts? Yeah, ik stel you way to the zoo. At that same moment, in the background, the tram comes to a halt at a stop. The young man looks her in the face. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful. Smiles. He grins. In the background, people step off and on the tram. The Tiergarten, weiß ich schon. Komm schnell, schön, ich zeige dir. I know the zoo. Come miss, this way. And he takes her with him to the corner of the street and points out the direction. But while he's standing with his back to the crèche and the tram is still waiting on the stop, behind him a door opens and a woman holding 2 children disappears in the opposite direction. Dankeschön, Esther smiles, and the soldier calls out to her, "Soll ich mitgehen, Schönlein? You want me to come with you, darling?" And then, laughing to himself, he returns to duty. The man hasn't a clue how he's been tricked. Hester and Pauline meet at the bicycle. And holding the boy in their arms and the girl sitting on the back of the bike, they ride back towards Cash's car. And once safely back home, the children are held out of their coats and taken care of. They give her bread and milk. Sally eats eagerly, but his sister doesn't want anything. Miriam lets her head rest on the table. "Mommy, I want my coffee," is all she said. Hester and Pauline look at each other. They have rescued these children for now, but Miriam and Sally shouldn't stay here for very long. Today, the beauty parlor is closed, but tomorrow several clients will be coming in. Most of those ladies will hardly notice the presence of some children in the practice. But one is enough. Someone who notices and thinks, yeah, what have you? Ah, they're probably Jewish kids, of course. I'm afraid I have to inform the authority. Because in those dark days, if you turn in Jewish people to the authorities, you could earn yourself some money. An adult would earn you 7.5 guilders, children half that amount. No, Esther Pauline decided. That cannot, that will not happen. Yes, but this means that the two children are still in danger. They need another, more secure address, preferably outside Amsterdam. And Pauline already has had an idea. She has already said, Esther, best friends of my parents are my Uncle Harm and my Aunt Toos. That's the family Diepeveen. The Diepeveen family are wonderful, trustworthy people. They're farmers who live in the tiny village of Omme, that is near the city of Zwolle in the northeast country. By train and bus, it's about, I would say, travel 3 hours travel. And I've asked them if they can take in a couple of guests for an indefinite time. And they have agreed. We can take the children to the Diepeveen family. There's one but though. My uncle and aunt expect the children after the weekend, and on Monday, we ourselves, we must work. We need someone else who can take the children for us to the north by train. This must be a person who we really can depend on. Someone also who has the courage for this. And the two friends ask themselves over and over again, who do I know that I can really trust? And then, all at once, Hesper exclaims, Polly, I know so. No less than 5 and no more than 10 minutes.
You ever had a stroopwafel? Okay.
That's fine.
Where are you going?
Okay, at our home. So guys, we left Keizersgracht 484 third floor. Guys, please. We left Keizersgracht 484 at the third. When Hester said to Pauline, I know someone who will take the children to the north of the country. So here we pick up the bread of the bread. It's always totally mixed up. The second part is almost as long as the first part. Bit short. Now I'm taking you to. Now I'm taking you 2 houses further up Keizersgracht to number 488. There, the basement, a man has been hiding for months. An Amsterdam Jew on the run from Hitler's soldiers. The man in the basement sighs. He's lost his freedom completely. While outside the sun is shining and streetlight buzzing, he's always locked in his own town. He feels like a caged animal. It's hard to bear. And oh, how happy he was only a few months ago when he decided to take his friend of the tennis club, Mies, into his confidence. He took her part in the clubhouse, saying, Mies, they're after me. I want to hide. Can you help me? I need a safe address. And how warmly did she respond? Mies took his hands into hers and said, Sjoerd Bartels, which is not his real name, but she said, Sjoerd Bartels, I have the perfect hideaway for you. Sjoerd, she said, I have a basement on Keizersgracht, which is empty, and you can live there as long as you like until the end of the war if necessary. But Sjoerd, there's one condition. You must promise me one thing faithfully. Hide yourself during the day. Keep the curtains closed. Don't make any noise. The neighbors mustn't know a thing, or we will all be at risk. And she took him to her Keizersgracht basement and said, we will bring you food and drinks. Now, sure, get some fresh air at night, at least after dark. Here's the key. Oh, yes. Listen, if you lose the key, you can always ask my sister, that's Hester. She lives 2 houses further up at number 484, 3rd floor. Hester has the spare key, but sure, I'm sure that won't be necessary. Will go with it? No, of course not. Thank you, Miss. And he has thanked her again. And he showed her to the door. Goodbye. And locked it behind her and put the key in a safe place. And since that day, he's been hiding in this basement of less than 20 square meters. And still you see him smiling sometimes. He smiles when he thinks about Miss beautiful sister. Esther, his neighbor. The idea that he would have to bother them. Guys, have I told you already that the man in the basement has fallen in love with Esther already months ago? The first time that he set his eyes on Hester was in 1941 at the tennis club, in the time that Jews were still allowed to play tennis. He was waiting for his tennis partner in the clubhouse at the bar with a cup of coffee when she entered. His mouth fell open. What a beauty. And Miss sister lives 2 houses further up. Look, guys, in normal circumstances, he would already have approached her and introduced himself and asked her to go out with him. And who knows what might have come from that. But the man in the basement realizes that he is only dreaming. This is no time for love. Do not think of her, he tells him over and over again. Just survive, and get through. Many hours of the day he spends reading. And now and then, just to kill time, He makes up the strangest of game. Sometimes, for instance, in the middle of the day, he dares to draw open, chink in the curtains for just a second, and then he draws himself back, leaning back against the furthest wall of the basement in the shadow. And then he stares up at the only small window in the room, because he loves to glimpse the people who walk by his hiding place in freedom. But of the people that walk by his hiding place in freedom, he can only see the legs and the knees, since he is under the street level. And this is the game. It's fun to try and guess who these legs and feet belong to. They are either granddad legs, grandma legs, a group of children, maybe 12 years old, chiefly laughing, and then suddenly, a beautiful yellow dress with two lovely, lovely legs underneath. Oh, but it's Hester. Oh, Hester. Oh, Hester. Oh, guys. He's gone already. At moments like this, the man in the basement almost gets insane. In despair, at moments like this, the whole situation drives him crazy. When will he be able to taste his freedom again? All at once, the man in the basement feels the urge to get in touch with the outside world. He simply must know, is Hitler winning or losing the war? And where on earth are the Allies? The Americans, the British, the Canadians? Are they on their way to liberate Holland? Or are they going to let the Dutch stew in their own juice? Now, around 9 in the evening, he starts to dismantle the bookcase, because behind all the books, a wireless in here. Mies has left it, especially for here, behind the books. Actually, keeping a wireless is a crime under the Nazis. But thank God, now we can listen to the latest news coming to him from London, England, in Dutch, Radio Orange. Actually, the man listens to the news. Suddenly his face lights up. They're just told that on the Eastern Front, Hitler is in retreat. In Russia, the Germans are being made mincemeat of. And now they'll be sure to report something about the situation in Western Europe and the long-awaited invasion. Again, he listens nervously. But no, nothing this time. When are they coming to free us? How much longer must I live this caged life? In agony, he hides the wireless and puts back all the books. And round midnight, it's time for some fresh air. It's daily walk around the block. By this time, there's practically no one outside. The only people who are currently on the street are German soldiers or their Dutch collaborators. The man pulls on his coat, picks up the key, and switches off the light. Feeling his way in the dark, he opens the door, is suddenly swept from his hands. There's a fierce wind blowing up on Keizersgracht. The door flaps and flaps again. So with a piece of cardboard, he wedges it slightly open. He prefers to leave the door open, since in case of emergency, he can then rush easily back in. His walk begins. Amsterdam. The street lamps are out, and so are the shop window lights. The wind blows. The man puts the collar of his jacket up and walks beneath the linden trees of Keizersgracht, tremendously enjoying this feeling of freedom. He turns left, strolling into that narrow and silent Kerkstraat, and it feels as if he's the only living soul on earth. Moments later, he reaches the Leidsestraat, normally busy, now completely deserted. He feels the tram rails under his feet. He turns left and rows back towards Keizersgracht, and suddenly, clap, 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 he hears from a distance an ominous sound. Clack, 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 clack. From the direction of Herengracht, some 200 yards further down, a column of German soldiers turns into the Leidsestraat. Up front, a soldier with a searchlight. They're heading straight towards him. The man doesn't hesitate. In that dark Leidsestraat, he slips into the porchway of a shop and back into the furthest room. And with his back to the wall, he starts to pray to God that they won't notice his presence. Sound and light approach. Clack, 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 clack. The man in the dark sweats all over his body. If they see a glimpse of his shadow, he's had it. But they look neither left nor right, and they pass him by, and the noise dwindles like supply. Clack, 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 clack. The silence of the night returns. Suddenly the man has had enough of his walk for one night. He takes to his heels, finding his way back to Keizersgracht. He wants only one thing, to return to his safe haven as quickly as possible. But there's the front door, and it's open. But just as he is about to enter, a gust of wind catches the door, and BAM! It shuts in his face. Locked. He can't get in. He feels in his trouser pocket for the key. And again, he can't find it. He left it inside. This is nothing less than a catastrophe. This is nothing less than a catastrophe. The next patrol might come along any minute now. Then he has really had it. He starts to panic. But then he hears the voice of his friend Mies in his head. Do it. If you lose the key, you can always ask my sister. Yes, but that's the lovely Hester he's got his eye on. She will be sleeping right now. He can't wake her in the middle of the night because he's lost the key. That will be so embarrassing. So he paces up and down in front of the locked room for a couple of minutes before he comes to the conclusion she is his only home. And in the dark, he finds the doorstep to number 484. He climbs the stone steps, reaches the top. The wind blows fiercely. He feels for the bell and finds a row of buttons. He presses the top one and doesn't hear a thing. Just the wind blowing, the trees rustling, and his own heart beating. Who's there? A voice from the heavens. It's her voice. The man looks up into the darkness, calling, I'm so sorry for waking you. I'm your neighbor, your sister. I'll open up. And he pushes the door open and gazes into a pitch black hallway, trying to figure out how far back it goes. And he begins to enter. As bang! The door shuts forcefully behind him. Step by step, he begins to feel his way in this unknown house in the dark. He trips and feels a stamp. On his hands and knees, he starts to climb the stairs. The staircase becomes a hallway again, and by touch, he starts to crawling along. I don't get it. He bangs his head badly. Ooh, it's a closed door, which opens. The man is on his knees, trying to recover from the blow, staring up. There's the woman he is secretly in love with. It's Hester. She's wearing a bathrobe over her night dress. Her hair is tied up with a scarf, and in her hand she carries a burning candle which lights up her beautiful face. She looks at the man lying at her feet and begins to giggle softly. And he scrambles to his feet and stammers, I'm awake. It's unearthly. I took my daily walk. I was sure that I had taken the key with me. I always put it in the sink. He stiffens, and the color drains from his face. And in front of her very eyes, he produces the key from his pocket. In the moment silence that follows, she looks at him in disbelief, then puts her hand to her mouth and stifles a giggle again. And he thinks, what a fine mess. She's laughing at my face. She's laughing in my face. And he quickly bids her good night and takes to his heels. Now, the very next morning, he is reading like always when someone softly knocks at his door. Who can that be? His first thought is, don't open it. But then, again, a knock, this time with more urgency. Quietly, he gets up from his chair and peers into the curtain. It's Het. He had not expected this at all. He takes a deep breath and opens the door. There she stands. Hello, Mr. Bartels. May I come in for a minute? Of course she can. And now she sits in his chair and he can't take his eyes off her. What can I do for you? Mr. Bartels, she says, I came to ask you something important. My sister Miss says that you are a trustworthy man. Well, he's pleased to hear this. What can I do for you? Mr. Bartels, are you fond of children? Would you consider escorting two children for us to the north of the country? He looks at her in surprise. Of course, he says, I'll do that for you. But what sort of children are they? Now it's her turn to be surprised. And after a moment's silence, she answers, well, Mr. Bartels, what sort of children could they be, I remember? Suddenly he realizes that this young lady is dedicated to the rescue of Jewish children, where she herself is not Jewish. And his heart starts beating ever faster for them. I'll take these children with pleasure, but we have quite a problem. I've got this identity card on the name of Sjoerd Bartels, but they're looking for Sjoerd Bartels. There's no way I can go out with this. And he hands over the card. I'll keep it with me, she says. We'll have to get you a new name. Now, obviously this young woman could contact St. Business because within 24 hours, Hester arrives back at the station, returning his identity card to him. She puts it on the table in front of him, he picks it up and studies it thoroughly. Apparently, it's just the same item as yesterday, completely with his photograph and all. But the words Sjoerd Bartels have been entirely removed and replaced by a new name. And the man in the basement reads, what's my name? Piet! Piet van Swieten! I'm Piet. Let's go, Piet, that's her house. And he follows her into her house at 484 and right up to the third floor, where he's introduced to a girl of 6 and a little boy of 2. Lillian and Sally, Hester says, this is Uncle Piet, and he's taking you on a trip out to the country. Trustingly, the two children look up at the strange man. Hello, children, Piet says. Soon we're going on a long train journey, but there's one thing that you must remember. Listen, children are not allowed to talk on that train. Young Miriam can't believe what she hears. Why not? Why can't children talk on the train? Yes, Miriam, because Piet frantically improvises. Because, Miriam, if children say things, that train guard gets very annoyed. I won't say anything. Miriam grins. And next to her, her little brother shakes his head gravely. The train to Zwolle is full of travelers. Fortunately, Piet and the children can sit by the window. They look out and see the meadows, the trees, and the farms race by. And Piet sits in peace. Everything is going well, and the two children, they behave perfect. All at once, little Sally sees something standing outside in the fields. He looks up to Piet, but remembers well, I'm not allowed to talk. The boy taps Piet on the arm and points out of the window. Piet looks. What is Sally pointing at? Karel. Sally nods. The right answer. Suddenly he taps Piet again and points out once more. Piet looks. She. Sally nods emphatically and points out again. A horse. Sally nods contentedly. He puts his thumb in his mouth and leans comfortably against his escort. And everything is going smoothly until about 20 kilometers from the destination, it suddenly goes totally wrong. Then, in that jam-packed carriage, in between all the other passengers, Miriam Appel suddenly gets a problem. And the girl says, Uncle Daniel, come on, Piet, I also have an Uncle Daniel. And when it's Hanukkah, he makes pancakes for me. She looks cheerfully up to Piet, but then freezes. Piet is holding his finger to his lips, and Miriam is scared stiff. Guiltily, she looks down the aisle to see if the train guard has overheard her. Apparently, he hasn't. However, Piet van Swieten is terrified. As somebody here in the train carriage has been listening to what the little girl just has said, but their fellow travelers seem not to have noticed. They keep on talking, reading, dozing. But right behind our friends, in another block of seats, there sits a man at the window, staring out. A man wearing a black hat. The train arrives in Zwolle, the city of Zwolle. Piet helps the children to step out, and together they walk up to the bus stop. The bus to Ommen is already standing waiting. But someone else has got off the train also. The man with the black hat, he follows the three with his eyes, sees where they're going, and then hurriedly finds a German soldier standing guard on the corner by the square. And he starts talking to the military right away. Hey, listen, see that man with the two children at the bus stop? They're Jews. The soldier looks at him indifferently. Deutsch speaker. Oh, Deutsch. The man with the black hat starts to stutter. Euch moet Joden, hè? Ja, koek. De man met de kinderen bij de bus. Joden. Joden? Nou, taxi dan. The soldier doesn't seem too bothered, but the man with the black hat insists. Now, going at him, reluctantly, the soldier goes into action. Piet van Swieten is about to step on the bus as he feels a hand on his shoulder. He looks up and into the eyes of a German soldier. His heart almost stops beating. The man holds Piet and his charges at gunpoint. Mitkommen! They're shoved away from the bus and pushed towards the pavement. This is the end, thinks Piet. There's no escape. It's too late to make a run for it. Images of prison camps come to his mind. Piet feels the hand of the two children in his. He nods back to Miriam encouragingly. Sally begins to cry softly. And in the background, we see the man with the black hat mentally counting his earnings. The soldier looks around. There are no colleagues to be seen. Gaily, he says. The man leads the three detainees up the street, still at gunpoint. He forced them in front of him to walk on the main road towards the city of Zwolle. Where is he taken? A voice from behind. Links. They take a left. Rechts. they turn right. The soldier leads them into a small and quiet alley. There are no other people around. And halfway down this narrow street is Halt. The soldier looks over his shoulder, and then pushes the three into a doorway. Pete and the children stand with their backs against the wall. Then the soldier steps into the doorway too, looks Pete right in the face, and says, "Hören Sie, wir sind nicht alle Unmenschen. Verstehen Sie, was ich meine? Ich meine es gut. Listen, we are not all inhuman. Mean well. Stay here for half an hour, then the coast will be clear." And he pats Pete on the shoulder, kneels, and strokes the children's heads, and whispers, "Pete, look." Then he steps out into the street, glances left and right, and is gone. And there stands Pete, glued to the spot, and the first to talk is little Sally. With the tears on his cheeks, he calls, "Nasty man!" But his sister knows better. "No, Sally, wasn't he Uncle Pete? Uncle Pete!" Pete from Street struggles for breath. Then he hears the children shouting, and he kneels down, hugs the little ones tightly to him, and gasps, "Children, that was the kindest man I've ever set eyes on." And they stand there for about half an hour, just like the soldier has told them to. And then together they walk back to the bus stop, take next bus to Ulm without any problems. And with some 30 minutes later, they arrive safely at the Diepenveen farm, the Diepenveen home, a lovely old thatched farmhouse. The three walk up the gravel path to the front door. That door swings open, and there, in the doorway, stands the farmer, a large man. He's wearing a black cap, blue overalls. He wears clogs on his feet, and the man stretches his arms open wide and calls his wife, "Mother, mother, the children have come. The children have come." And he picks them up. "Oh, what a big boy you are, and what a nice bow you've got. I am Uncle Karl. This is Aunt Toos, and so you must be Miriam. You must be Sally." We're not supposed to say that anymore. No, I remember well. "You are Marianne now. Your name is Sander. Get used to that. Now, first we have a bite to eat. See the cows. There's lots of animals here. It's horses too. What's your little brother say?" "Oh, sheep! Yes, lots of sheep." What wonderful, wonderful people. Miriam and Sally can stay and live here as Marianne and Sander Diepenveen right until the end of the war. Their chaperone, Piet van Swieten, returns to Amsterdam that same day. And before dark, he arrives safe in his home at his Keizersgracht basement. In that same period, Hester and Pauline cycled back and forth from Keizersgracht to the creche and the school many times, each time returning home with one or two children, sometimes babies, sometimes toddlers, and occasionally older children. They spent one or two nights with the two women on Keizersgracht, and then were taken by a few brave people, including Piet van Swieten, people who risked their own lives to take these little ones to families living elsewhere in the Netherlands. Families who had the courage to take Jewish children into their own home. And in this way, Hester van Lennep and Pauline van Baasdijk managed to smuggle no less than 70 Jewish children out of the prison at Plantation Middelburg to safety. And these 70 survived, where in many cases their parents did not. How much time do you have left? Then he was long or short.
Go for it, girl.
Go. Do it. I do it. Hester and Pauline, they realized that their home had become a shelter. The two women realized that getting too fond of these little ones was dangerous and therefore out of the way. In spite of this, Hester and Pauline, in one case, really got attached to a little girl. On a warm day in June 1943, the doorbell rings at Keizersgracht School. Hester looks out the windows and like always she calls, "Who's there?" Though there is nobody at the door, there appears to be a package put down in front of the front door. No sign of the deliverer though. Pauline, we've got mail, and Hester runs downstairs and opens the heavy door, and there's on the doorstep a cardboard box. Hester looks up and down the canal, but she can't see anybody who might have left the box there in front of the door. The package weighs almost nothing, and upstairs, Hester puts the box on the table, and together with Pauline, they open the top. And the two women bend over, they look at the contents, and they exclaim as one, "Oh my God." Because do you know what they are looking at? They look at the baby, hardly a month old. Pauline lifts the infant out of the box and Hester finds a note with only the date of birth and a name written on it. The girl is called Ruth Michaelis, born June 2nd, 1943. The baby is 3 weeks old and it's so incredibly sweet. The two friends fall head over heels in love with this baby. They even argue about who gives her a bottle and who changes her nap. And that weekend, Hester visits her mother outside town and says, "Mommy, someone has brought us a baby, a foundling. She is so sweet, Mom. And I don't want to give little Ruth away to anybody else. Mom, what would you think if I adopted Ruth? She'd have my surname and I would give her a unmarried mother." Hester's mother didn't think it was a brilliant idea and said, "Think about it, love. Think about what you're getting yourself into. You're not married." But Hester is determined. Once back home, she takes her friend into her confidence. "Pauline, I must tell you, I can't give away Ruth to anybody else. I want to adopt her." At that very moment, Pauline van Maasdijk looks crestfallen towards her friend Hester Clem. "Hester," she proclaims, "I've also talked to my mom. We decided that I should adopt Ruth. And for the first time in the story, women are now shoulder to shoulder opposite each other." "Pauline," Hester calls out, "let's not argue about this," and picks up Gilbert from the shelf. "Pauline, heads or tails?" "Okay," says Pauline. "Give me heads." "Okay," Hester replies. "If it's heads, you get a doctor. If it's tails, I adopt." And no sooner said than done. Hester shakes the coin between her hands, and in her head she repeats the word tail. And at the same time, Pauline mutters to herself. Hester tosses the coin high into the air. The gilder spins and falls onto the tablecloth. The friends bend their hands over to see what the result is. And at the same time, one beams with joy, for she had just become a mother, where the other looks dreadfully disappointed. The disappointed one is Hester, for it's heads, and Pauline beams. She takes her newly adopted baby from the cradle and tells Hester the name that she has chosen. "I'll give her my son Van Maasdijk, and I shall call her Marijn." "Yes." "Maar oh, happy. Oh, Hester, I'm so happy. Now don't you tell my friends that I'm a no." "No, Pauline. They've not even seen you pregnant as yet. You must invent a story of how you got married." Hester takes the lead. "Pauline, you're temporarily out of work. You have just given birth. So please take a rest. Lie down in bed with the baby. I'll take care of everything." So while Pauline lies in her bed with her newborn baby daughter, Hester tells everybody who will listen about Pauline. She's got herself really into trouble. What? Well, 9 months ago, she went out on She went out on the town dancing. She spent the night with some chap, someone she never met before and hasn't seen since. And now, what do you think? She got a baby. Oh, the friend, real. Very same day, Hester cycles to Amsterdam town hall. She's going to register her friend's new baby at the registry's office. This is the only way that Pauline is entitled to ration coupons for clothes and food for the baby. And that's how Hester comes to be standing in a queue at the counter for the registration of birth. It's her turn. Opposite her sits the register. The following exchange takes place. Good morning. Morning, sir. Can I help you? Yes, sir. I come to register a birth. Okay. Congratulations. Is it a girl or a boy? It's a girl. And what's her name? Marijke van Basten. Marijke van Basten. Okay. What's the name of the mother? Pauline van Basten. Pauline van Basten. And what's the name of the father? What's the name of the father? Hester plays her role well. She blushes, she stammers. There is no father. The man frowns. No father. How does she come to have a baby? Sir, she got herself into trouble. Now she's stuck with a baby. Sir, she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't get to go out. And she has said me, oh please, mister, please give me coupons for food and clothing. The man behind the counter keeps silent. Then nods. Doesn't ask any further questions, though he understands very well that this is not about a woman who's got herself about a Jewish child. And he gives Hester enough coupons for food and clothing. And this is how little Marijke is able to stay with her foster mom, who really hopes that one day the family Michaelis will one day return to take back their baby. Then Pauline will be able to say, here is your darling daughter. I've looked after her as if she were my own. See how well she is doing. But this will never happen. And then, 2 years later, World War II is finally over. In the east of Europe, in Russia, the Russians have brought the German forces to defeat. And in the west, the battle was won by the Americans, the Canadians, and the British. It's May 1945. The Netherlands get liberated thanks to the Allied forces. An explosion of joy. The Dutch are dancing in the street. Free at last! But there is also a lot of grief. Do you remember the name Theo Bos and the Bos family? He was a shopkeeper in Amsterdam. On the very same day, the military raided that block of houses and took away the Apple family. They arrested Mr. Bos. He was put into prison for helping Jews. Later sentenced to concentration camp Dachau in Germany. And there in Dachau, Theo died a few months later from exhaustion. Clearly, this was a case of betrayal. But who betrayed Mr. Bos? It was the customer who came for a tablecloth, Mrs. Smith. The very same day that she heard that noise above her head, she went to the authorities to report her suspicion that Mr. Bos was hiding Jews. But the Smiths family, they also suffered greatly. Do you remember that they had a son, Ali Smith, the young man in the photo, and the helmet he had received personally from Mr. Hitler himself? Ali would never return home to his fiancée Kobe, because Ali drove his Russian mine he drove his German tank over a Russian mine in Stalingrad. And that was the end of Ali Smith. There was sadness too at the Diepenveen farm in Omme, where Uncle Harm and Aunt Toos received a letter from the Red Cross stating that Sarah and Jaap Appel were murdered in the gas chamber of Auschwitz in Poland. They would never return to collect darling children. So the two Appel children grew up at the farm in Ommen as Marianne and Sander Dieper. Many years later, when they were adults, Marianne and Sander decided to take back their original names, Miriam and Sally, and their Jewish identity. And again later, with their family, they moved to Israel, where they still live today. In May 1945, Hester and Pauline said farewell to each other. The two friends had managed to rescue no less than 70 Jewish children from the hands of the Nazis, and those 70 had survived the war. Now the two friends wanted to leave all the tensions and anxieties of the war behind and start a new life. Pauline left Amsterdam. She took her foster child Marijke with her to The Hague, where she had met this wonderful man who would take them both lovingly into the house. Pauline received a letter from the Red Cross saying that the whole Michaelis family was lost in the gas chambers of Poland. 80 Michaelis relatives were gassed in Sobibor. Little Ruth had lost her entire family. So, subsequently, Marijke grew up in The Hague with her mommy Pauline when she was 4 years old and had just started the primary school when in 1947, 2 years after the liberation, unexpectedly, another letter from the Red Cross was delivered to Pauline. It declared that one relative of Ruth Michaelis had survived the war. This was the brother of her father, Hugo Michaelis, her uncle, who lived in New York in America, where he, to his disbelief, had heard that one of his nieces was still alive in the Netherlands. He wanted his niece back to bring her up himself. So, Pauline van Waasdijk had no other option, no other choice than, on behalf of the Dutch government, give up her foster child to its rightful uncle. She buttoned up her daughter's coat, pulled her rucksack on her back, and she brought Marijke to the airport and carried her over to a flight attendant. Marijke flew over the ocean towards her unknown uncle, and she and Pauline would never see each other again. After the war, Hester kept on living on Keizersgracht. It was her deep desire to find, like Pauline had done, a wonderful man. A man to love, to marry, and with whom to bring children up together in peace. And Hester, of course, knew a man just like that. She had fallen in love with the guy next door, the man in hiding in the 488 basement, who had helped her so well bring any children to safety. The man in the basement had survived the war, and he also harbored a deep desire to marry the girl of dreams, Hester van Lem. He could finally step out of his shelter as a free man and introduce himself using them. It was neither Sjoerd Bartels, nor was it Piet van Swieten. No. His real name was Karel Baracs, a Jewish Hungarian Dutchman. That's what he was. And he had loved Hester already for so long. They married and got 3 children, a girl in 1945, a girl in 1947, and in 1950 they received a son, and they named him Karel, and that's me. So, yes, wait, yes, of course, the Hester in the story and the man in the basement, you know of as Sjoerd or Piet, but whose name is Karel Baracs. These two people, they are my father and my mother. And here ends the story of the Storyteller of Amsterdam. telling a story that I see. Now, is it only the last line? I was brought up in Amsterdam by two wonderful people who knew that I had become a storyteller, not that I would tell their story to the audience, to the young children of Amsterdam, including the Muslim children of Amsterdam, who loved the story too. And I can tell you, can I take them in confidence? Yeah. Of the 70 children that my mom and dad say, I know two actually, because I can't live the life of my parents. So I know two. One of them is the girl that was once delivered in a box at my mom's doorstep. She was called Marijke by Pauline, and if the coin had fallen otherwise, it would be the daughter of the foster child of Hessen. Then the girl would have been my half sister, or my stepsister. But you know that Pauline lost Marijke, traveled to New York and got into the family of this very traumatized uncle, and never forgot the name Mommy Pauline, and was only 40 years old when she came to the Netherlands to find Mommy, but Pauline had already died, and got back to the United States without knowing anything about her past. But there was another woman in the Netherlands who loved the little girl, who was in the meantime a grown-up woman, was a psychotherapist in the meantime, fantastic doctor, she was Marijke. And my mom said in 1994, she asked me as her son to find out what had become of the little girl in the box. And so I did some research and I found Marijke in a little town in South Bend, Indiana. And maybe she was in Pittsburgh still then, I don't remember. But I wrote her a letter that there was a woman in the Netherlands waiting for her that loved her. And Marijke had not expected that at all. So she traveled to the Netherlands, and then she embraced my mom and dad and me, and became friends with us. Took along her two sons, of whom one of the sons is standing there at the back, Eli there. Put off your mask, Eli. Show your. This is the story of his mom. Yeah, but her husband Brown, Marijke is Brown. She is near Chicago. Here's her first husband. They separated. It happens in life, and then David married for a woman. Sorry, we always think it's found, but this again, this is the woman that married and he loved her. This is Lindy. Because Eli and I became friends, and he's a filmmaker, and he made a film about this whole story, this incredible story. And I tell it to the children of Amsterdam, and I use it as a means. This is not my aim. This is a means to fight against racism and discrimination. Because what happened then to the Jews still happens to other populations, beliefs. People are persecuted for the color of their skin, or their belief, of who they are. Though the Second World War had this is phenomenon, of course. How can I explain? Like the Second World War has this unbelievable fact that people organized a big murder of other people very well. They organized it at a meeting table, and they planned everything so well. That is how do you call it? President. So we must never forget the Second World War for this, what people can do to each other, but we realize that all the wars of the world are equal, awful. But I talk to the children of Amsterdam and I give them hope, and I ask them not to be racist and don't discriminate. And I took Marijke between 2000, when I started to tell the story, and 2010, about every year, and so in total maybe 100 voices. Marijke was at the back of the hall, like Eli is now, and then at the end of the show I said to the children, you know what? The girl that was delivered at Hester in the box is in this room. And then she stepped forward, and the children of Amsterdam asked questions to Marijke, and they came up to hug her. All There were children from all kinds of backgrounds who were touched, including. These were the most touching moments. I hope that Eli got this on film. And Eli is still working on a film that he hopes. I speak for you now. I really hope that he will finish the story, the film, which started in '94, but it's about 30 years now. And he'll make it into a documentary, what it also has meant for himself. Documentary making about his mom and what it meant for him. And now I will finish by saying that I came, guys, but I hope to celebrate Marijke's 80th birthday. She was from 2nd of June 1943, 2nd of June 2023. We will celebrate it with Eli and his brother and all the family. Marijke's 80th birthday. And I'm so happy to come over, and that Mindy was the one organized this for me.
Names are on the Avenue of the Right address. Our granddaughter is named after Polly.
Granddaughter Paula was named after Polly. Yeah. And this is the first time that Mindy saw the show. That she only heard about it. Now she's. What do you think?
I just want to mention also that Eli, for his 40th birthday, wanted all of us to go to Amsterdam. His mother, me, David, his Lisa, his wife, Lisa's sister, everybody that he loved, and we celebrated in Amsterdam. Karel showed us the crash and all the other sites that he had done.
Sure. Exactly the same. But my parents were supportive. They had gone through anxiety, but they had not seen the camps and the terrible, the hell on earth. They hadn't seen that. So, and they were open characters, so they would talk about it. Where other families, I heard from friends that their parents would shut down. They wouldn't say anything. I was so fortunate that my dad told me, maybe he took too early, I heard when I was 3 years old. And that made me very afraid of life. When they asked me, what are you going to be as a profession? I said, I'm going to be a clown. I'm going to make people happy. And you know what? I ended up like a clown. Look at me. So I tried to combine the distress and the sadness of the story with some sense of humor. Must be not too heavy for the children of Amsterdam, for the Americans too. Is there a question? Yes, sir. I wrote the story after hearing so many things. And the true people in the story are Hester, the man in the basement, Samuel, Pauline, Marijke, Johan van Hulst, the principal, and others. But for instance, the guy who let my father go in Zwolle, so which is a hero in the story, I have no clue who that is, so I made him up. And also, I heard many hiding stories, so I made Mr. Potts up. And I heard many traitor stories, so I made Mr. Smith up. What happened? That my father was released in the city of Zwolle by a German soldier. Yeah. And this girl had talked in the train. Girl had talked about Hanukkah in the train. Thank you. Maybe we understand here. He's a lot of that what just said. Touches Actually, I had a few times, yeah. But my dad was a secular Jew, and he was not a religious Jew. So I'm, but at the same time, we feel Jewish, and it's how we felt. It's not only a religion; it's also a culture. So that goes very deep. They call me a founder Jew because some people don't accept me being a Jew. It is as it is. Is there not another question? I think when I wrote it I was 50 years old. Maybe not so long because as a sponge I have all soaked it up from my 30 year old. I will tell you this in a minute, which should also be lost at the moment. I told in the story that the Dutch government ordered me to give up a child to the right help. The guy who had made the decision with the social workers together was my own dad. Because my dad was between 1945 and the 50s responsible for the fate of the Jewish foster children. 85% of them came back in the families or in Jewish environment, but 15% were left in the foster home. But the Jewish world didn't understand that all the time. I have to explain this, that the Dutch government, the Dutch policy is not to have Catholic foster care and Protestant foster care and Jewish foster care and communist foster care and liberal. No, one Dutch foster care, and they look for the best of that individual child. And if, sadly enough, the families or didn't have returned at all, or were traumatized and ill and had lost everything of value, then in some cases they found it better to leave the children in that Protestant home or in that Catholic. And you know what? When they do the research now, what has become of the children, all is possible. Children who have returned to the family in Jewish environment were happy. Children that returned to Jewish environment or families were sad. Children that had to stay in the foster families were happy. Others were sad. And my father gets placed in the Holocaust Museum in Amsterdam, and there's comes a new museum there. And under his story, there's the headline is there were no good solutions, only bad and less bad solutions. If the coin had fallen otherwise, my father and his social workers had to take away his own daughter from his own wife. Now Pauline was the one who had to give up Marijn. This ended the friendship between Hester and Pauline. Very sad story. Marijn is a very strong lady in South Bend, Indiana. And when I am traumatized, and I sometimes am, reasons, I went through a couple of divorces, and one who helps me best of all people brought in a box to my mom. I grab the telephone and I cry or I tell her what bothers me, and she's so incredibly wise. And she tells me, and then I can go on. This is a miracle in itself, huh? Yeah, guys, thank you for coming over.